right. Hello, everyone. My name is Hannah Whaley, and I'm the senior attorney here at Immigration. And today we're going to talk about all of the visa options that are available for international students. I am just going to wait one more minute in case there's a few more people who need to get inside, but I'm really excited to let you guys know how you can prepare for your future and what is to come before you as far as visa options while you're an international student. And I do see that there are some questions in the chat. At the end of the webinar, I will address some of the questions that are in here. And if I don't get to your question, please feel free to contact me directly. So we're just going to wait one more minute and then we'll get right into it. All right, so let's get straight into today's webinar. Again, my name is Hannah Whaley, and I'm super excited to present this information to you guys and just give you all a little more insight as to what visa options are available so that you can plan out your future and really reach the goals that you have for yourself. So first, we're just going to lay out what we'll be talking about today. First, we're going to talk about what visa students can apply for to prepare for a successful future, how to self-petition, visa sponsorships, as well as the requirements that go into all of these categories. So first, let's cover what are the common questions I typically get from international students. And typically they all surround the same concerns. How do I maintain status after graduation? What visas can I get? What sponsorships are available? How do I go about getting a sponsorship? What options are available to me even beyond the sponsorship realm? And do I have to return back to my home country? And I know that these are very critical concerns because you're coming here, you're getting the education, and a lot of you want to be able to have an employer, have an opportunity to stay beyond and really further your career. So let's get into how we can address all of these concerns. First, do you have to return home? We're going to start with this because this is the biggest question that really holds together everything else. And the simple answer to this is no. And that's just because you may be eligible for a self-petition or a sponsorship. And I know these terms might be new to some of you guys. So let's get into what exactly these two things mean. Now, a self-petition is a type of petition that means that you do not need a employer to sponsor. You don't need an employer. You don't need a job offer. None of that is required. Everything is based on the individual. And with these self-petitions, what happens is that it puts you on a direct route to a green card. These self-petitioning categories are regularly and in USCIS for immigration referred to as employment-based green cards. And again, that's because we have that direct route straight from the visa to adjustment of status, which is a very attractive part of that self-petition. Now we have sponsorships. A sponsorship is a work visa that does require a job, a U.S. job offer, and a U.S. company to petition for you. And what petition means is that the employer is the one who's actually filing on your behalf. So a big thing that people like to weigh out with the self-petition and sponsorship on the business side is what are the pros and cons? Now, with that self-petition, the biggest pro that I always push if you're able to meet one of the categories we'll be discussing is that there's no dependency on an employer. That is one of the biggest advantages to that employment-based green card. And I say that because a lot of times international students, foreign nationals, they don't want to be held to the situation of being at the mercy of their employer, relying on being able to stay in the United States and continue only if that employer files for them again or extends their status. So that is a huge benefit to a self-petition. Now, the second one that I love to put out is a streamlined process. That's because self-petition versus sponsorship is where the self-petition is based on you as the individual. While with the sponsorship, there are two levels that have to be assessed. First, we have to look at it because it's based on the employer. We have to look at whether the employer meets the Department of Labor standards. And once they're approved there, then they apply for you. However, there is there are a lot of pros to sponsorships as well. One of the biggest pros to a sponsorship that a lot of people prefer is the fact that it is employer based. That means that the process does not hinge on you as the worker. Of course, you do have to meet the requirements for whatever job the employer is sponsoring you for, but the process is based on them meeting compliance standards. As well, another great pro is that it guarantees a job opportunity. And that takes a lot of stress off of individuals if they want to have a job coming in. But with the self petition, you don't have to have a job, but you will have to find one on your own. So those are the biggest pros and cons. They both have great aspects to them, but I always do push that self petition because it allows the foreign national to have way more mobility in the United States, as well as getting to that green card category. So what are the best self-petitioning work visas? Now, I'm choosing the EB-1A and the EB-2 specifically when it comes to international students. And the reason that I say this is because I have seen college students get the EB-1A, and with the EB-2, that is a better one for the master's level students, but we'll get into that into a second. But these are the best categories. And the reason that I say this is both of these will put you on a direct path to a green card. Now, the EB-1A is based on extraordinary ability. And basically, what I narrow that down to is achievement, skill as a professional or a student. This hinges on your ability to meet some of the requirements that USCIS has that determine what would fulfill for extraordinary ability. Now, that EB-2 NIW stands for National Interest Waiver. What I love about this category is that there are 3 ways to qualify, but this category is really based on the field and level of education, or it also has the catch-all of exceptional ability. But the national interest waiver, the reason it's called a national interest waiver is because when you self-petition in this category, you get to bypass the typical labor certification process with an employer because you're working or your education has been in a field of national importance and interest. So the EB-1A, qualifying as a student. Now, what I did is I've broken these down into categories that I find easier to see for qualifying. And you don't have to meet all of these. You have to meet some of them. We'll get into that. But these are the categories. First, we're going to start in the area of merit. If you have received national or international prizes or awards, you have published material that's in trade publication, professional material, articles, other media. Another way to meet this category is if you've had work displayed at artistic exhibitions. And those are just the merit-based ways you can qualify here. Now, when we're looking at skill, if you judge the work of others individually or on a panel, this could help you with qualifying. Leading or being in a critical role in a distinguished organization, authorship that's been presented in media or publication. And then when we shift to the achievement category, we have membership in associations in the field, original scientific or scholarly, any type of related contribution to your field. And last, we have commercial success in the performing arts. When we look at these categories, do not look at them in a linear fashion, You can pick and choose with these. The point is that we need to qualify just in a few of these, and that in itself can help you qualify for an EB-1A. And again, this is a green card pathway, which is why I love this visa category. So how many do I need to meet? This is the biggest question, and I'm happy to tell you guys you only need to meet 3. And again, we're just going to go back to that. You only have to meet 3 of any of these. They don't have to be all in the same category. I just broke them down for purpose of viewing them and understanding them in a better way. But I love that all you have to do is show 3, but it's really, really important in this EB-1A and just with any employment-based green card that you have the evidence to prove that you fulfill the criteria that I've listed in that previous slide. Now, how to get an EB-1A while in school. So these are just my little tidbits as to what I've seen, what works for applicants who are in college, and how to really get to an EB-1A. So the first thing I always advise international students, apply for awards. I don't care how many, just apply. Whether they're academic, achievement, whether it's community based, you really want to set yourself apart, because what you can see from that EB1A category, that is really based on merit, skill, showing that evidence of I am exceptional. Look at what I've written, look at what I've contributed to. So look at co-ops for writing, being published and authored with pieces with your professors. And that's one of the biggest things I will suggest. Make sure you're asking your professors for academic opportunities for these awards within the community or within your school, because these things can be used to really help with your EB1A petition. Next, we're going to these internship opportunities. I know we have internships, CPT, OPT. I know there are limitations on that, but while you're there, make the most of it. Try to work on major projects. Always be asking to be part of major projects and assignments. And we're just going to move over here. This is probably the most important part that you need to be doing the entire time that you are in school. If you plan to apply for a visa when you're coming out, especially an employment-based, documentation. You need to be documenting your work experience in detail. And I understand it's not really work, it's CPT, OPT, internship, but for the purpose of this presentation, we'll say work experience and employers. But when you're on these internships, CPT and OPT, make sure you're documenting in detail. Let's say you're an engineering major and you were working with Michelin on a electrical unit. Let's say, just say we're working on an electrical unit. What you need to document needs to be beyond worked on electrical unit. You need to say worked on an electrical unit where my tasks were X, Y, and Z, LMNOP, where I contributed to solution. That is how you're going to win with this EB1A category. You need to be able to fully express what you've done and how you contribute to that field of work that you're in. Next, we're going to go down here to opportunities to judge. A lot of people, they look at this and you have a lot of clients who get a little nervous. Oh, I've never judged anything. You're probably thinking way too big. When we look at judging, this can be judging within the school. This can be judging within the community. So ask your professors, ask the people in your community, in your network, where you can volunteer to judge within your field of study and really show that expertise and skill. And just like what I was saying with documenting with those internships, when you're judging, you want to document, what did I judge? What was the level? What was it in? We want to get all of that detail, because that is what that EB1A hinges on, because any green card, employment-based green card, has a higher standard. What that means is that USCIS looks at it a lot more closely, because it's a direct route to a green card. So it is super, super important that you're able to explain fully your skill, how it was applied, and how you were able to apply it within judging with the specific opportunity. Now, another one, just branching off of it, ask to be involved in personal projects with your professor, as long as they're within, your field of work. This could help you get published or place you in a lead role for a petition. As well, join professional associations. I know when we were in law school, we were all told to join bar associations before we were barred, before we ever graduated. It's a way to get involved. It's a way to get familiar with projects, network with people who can put you in situations to allow you to gain this experience, this skill, and all of these things that will help you, again, fulfill the requirements of that EB1A. And I just want to also repeat that you only need three. So there are ways to do it, but you have to prepare yourself while you're in school. So the most common EB1 professions that we see is the STEM professionals. And of course, we have scientists down there that falls within it. Professors, teachers, and researchers, which is why I really hinge on utilizing those professors at your disposal, entrepreneurs, and then writers. But again, this doesn't encompass all the ones that can apply. If you can meet those categories and show that evidence, that is what matters, not whether or not you're in these specific roles. Now let's get into the EB2 National Interest Waiver, which is my favorite. This one is really more so tailored to post-grad, that master's degree. but a student could qualify under exceptional ability. Now, for that baseline qualification for the EB2 national interest waiver, there are 3 ways to qualify. You must either meet the 3 of 6 criteria for exceptional ability, you must have a bachelor's plus 5 years of work, or if you have an advanced degree. And I want to hinge on this advanced degree category because a lot of times I have clients who come to me that have a bachelor's degree and then they go, oh, I got an associate's after. Unfortunately, USCIS wants to see something beyond in an upward sense from that bachelor's degree. So although that additional degree is beneficial, it would not qualify under the advanced degree category. But we're going to go through what exactly goes into qualifying for exceptional ability for this EB2 national interest waiver. So the criteria, the first one is if you have an official academic record showing that you have a degree, diploma, certificate, or a similar award from a college, university, or institution. As F1 students, that's something that's inevitable as you graduate and have a successful career. Or if you're in a master's position, you may already have this. Now, the second criteria, this really doesn't apply for students. This is more so for entrepreneurs who may not have that degree. They're able to show 10 years of experience, so we're not going to focus on that. Now, the third one is having a license to practice in the profession. Again, you guys are students, so too many people might not qualify right there, but that's okay. There's more criteria. So we have that academic record. Let's just count that as 1. Now, when we look at the other ones, we have evidence of commanding a higher salary or another form of essentially financial gain from your services. One way that I've seen this across the board for students is that if you're, let's say, an artist and you're commissioning pieces on the side, or you're an engineer and you've been fixing people's computers as a side business, right? This, if you're making money off of it, this is a way to show that you're commanding a higher salary or different forms of financial gain because of your ability. And it shows exceptional ability because people are paying for your skill in your craft. Next is evidence of membership in professional associations. This is one that can easily be met too. As I said, as a college student, you can join different associations. However, what we do want to make sure is that these aren't associations that just anyone can get into. It doesn't have to be the highest threshold, so to speak, but what you can have is if you join a professional association that says you must be a college student in this degree and have achieved X, Y, and Z, or you must have a 3.0 if you're a grad student, if it appeals to a wider crowd. But the thing is, we want to see either that there are specifications that make it a more professional association, but that is on a case by case. I would say speak to an attorney and look at that membership and see if it will qualify. And last, another way is if you can show significant contributions to the field. And that is a big, or achievement, and that's a big catch-all too. You can show that by awards, or if you got an award on CPT or OPT for your work. Let's say you worked on something and you don't have to be the author, the main person. Let's say you played a critical role in something that was adopted by a different school, or you wrote in a piece that was adopted by a certain publication or government entity. That also qualifies here. So one thing I really like to hinge on for international students is that there are ways to qualify for the EB2 NIW. But the 2 ways it's really going to happen for an F1 student is you're going to try to qualify under exceptional ability, or you want to qualify under that advanced degree if you're a master's level student. So what are the best options available to me with the sponsorship? Now, again, these are my preference, but in my opinion, an F1 student, if you're an international student, you are not looking for temporary work. You want to be somewhere for extended period of time. So to me, these are the best options because with the O1, you can have it for initial validity period of 3 years, but it can be extended indefinitely for 1 year increments. And of course, that's a lot on the employer. Well, it's not too much to renew yearly, but at least you know there isn't a time limit where you have to go back. Now, if we shift to the H-1B, it does have a cap, but it's 6 years, which gives a lot of people time to think of other options. So when it comes to sponsorships in relation to international students, These are the only two I would really be looking at so that you can have a successful future in your specific career. Now, with the O1, this is another extraordinary ability category. And what I love about the O1 is that it's broken into two categories, but it essentially mirrors that EB1A, that green card category that we saw for extraordinary ability. It mirrors almost exactly. And this category is based mainly on achievement and skill as a professional or a student. Now, if we shift to the H1B, this is for specialty occupations. And we will get into what exactly that means, but it is essentially hinging on the level of education and skill that you possess. So let's get into the O1. Now, this is generally qualifying. We're going to break it down between it's the O1A and the O1B, but this is the general qualifications. First, we need to have that sponsorship. What that means, again, this means that you have a U.S. employer who will file on your behalf. Second, we need to have skill. Again, this is where we want to meet 3 of the criteria. And then we have job offer. And this is where you need to have a job offer, which is, of course, that would come with the sponsorship, but that is just generally qualifying. Now, the O1A versus the O1B. The difference in these two categories is who they're tailored to, because the requirements shift just a tad bit for the O1A to the O1B, because the O1A focuses on having extraordinary ability in the areas of science, education, business, or athletics. If you don't specifically fall in this category, that doesn't mean you can't get an O1A. There's likely another category that might fit under business, a big catch-all, but that's the O1A. Now, the O1B is specifically tailored to individuals who are within the arts and motion picture or television, and still the same 3-year validity period with indefinite extensions, but they're broken down specifically by occupation for this specific visa category. Now, for the O1A, the ways you can meet it, just like with the EB1A, memberships and associations in the field, published material in professional trade journals or major media, evidence of participation on a panel individually as a judge of the work of others, or on a panel, Then we also have, if you have original scientific, scholarly, or business-related contributions, if you have evidence of being employed in a critical or essential capacity, and then we have evidence of commanding a higher salary. Now, with the O1B, you have to meet at least 3 of these, and this is, again, if you're within the area of the arts, and that's if you performed or will, which is what I love about that O1B, because if you're not in it yet, you can petition with the idea of what you will be doing once you enter the US, but performed or will perform as a lead or starring participant in productions or events of distinguished reputation. And there are a variety of ways to show distinguished reputation. That can be shown by the amount of traffic that comes to an organization, the amount of traffic that they get on their website or attendees. There are various ways to show that. Second, we have evidence of significant recognition of achievements. Third, evidence that you will perform or will perform in a lead and critical starring role. And I want to pause here, because with the O1B, what I love is you can use the same evidence here that you can use here. And it's the same with the other categories. Even with the employment-based green card, if you have something that fits into multiple categories, you can use it to meet multiple of the multiple elements to still achieve achieve the visa category. Next, we have evidence of a record of major commercial or critically acclaimed success, and then again, commanding that higher salary. Now, can you qualify another way? Now, this is a catch-all one that I love with the O1, and it is usually included in the general requirements, but I like to offset it because an applicant who has been nominated for or has been a recipient of significant national or international awards can still qualify. But the great thing with the O1 when it comes to this, if you qualify here, you don't even have to meet the others. This in itself is enough. But if you can't meet this, that's why we go back and we try to hit at least 3 of the criteria that was listed for that O1A and O1B. But if you have this, you don't even have to worry about anything else. So that's why I really, again, push apply for awards, get awards, awards, because they're with these awards, it really allows you to really double over and have more options regarding your future and what visa categories that you can apply for. Now, the H-1B. The H-1B is another, again, with the sponsorships, they are based on the employer. So this is just the aspect of what the employee must meet if you want to be an H-1B worker. Now, you have to be in a specialty occupation. And what that means is that you're working in a field that requires a bachelor's degree or higher, but USCIS does define it as a body of work that has a theoretical and practical application of a highly specialized knowledge. Again, that is at least a bachelor's degree or higher. If you are a master's level student that achieved your bachelor's degree internationally, that's okay. You can get something called a degree evaluation. And by getting one of these, it basically evaluates your international degree and states what your US equivalent would be in. And in most cases, it is a bachelor's degree. So if you have an international degree, that's not an issue. And the degree requirement has to be common to the industry. So if your job description does not typically require a bachelor's degree, I'm not saying that you can't qualify for the H-1B, but what I am saying is going to be a higher burden of having to explain what this highly specialized knowledge of work that you're doing and what you know is going to apply in this situation. Now, more aspects of it, again, that specialized knowledge really hinges on the duties and what your skill is. It has to be so specialized and complex that it would typically require attaining a bachelor's degree or higher, and that your employer must normally require a bachelor's degree for this position. They can't say that everyone else doesn't require a bachelor's degree, but you do specifically, because USCIS will look at that and say, I don't think so. This isn't an H-1B. We don't want to be in a situation like that. So if you do have an H-1B employer, it is really important to make sure that you're meeting the requirements for that. Now, how to prepare for a sponsorship. These are my tips of how I've seen people secure sponsorships, whether they've been on OPT, CPT, F1. The best thing you can do and the most major thing that you can do is build lasting relationships at your internship, OPT, CPT. You need to be making real connections, not just doing your work and leaving. Try again to be on extra projects, understand what's going on, stay in contact with them after and ask, is there anything I can help with? Are there any major projects that you need assistance with? I would love to help. As well, you need to be constantly, again, asking for opportunities, even if it's unpaid, because I know, with the situation with your F1, it's a little specific, but especially unpaid work, that's a great way to show an employer that you're dedicated. And I've seen employers take OPT, CPT, master's level students, grad students, bachelor students, and sponsor them due to the amount of effort and loyalty they've shown for being committed to their job. So I definitely want to focus on building those lasting relationships. Next, asking the right questions. And there really are the right questions to ask. A lot of international students, they get nervous and they don't know what to ask. How do I ask? What do I say? And there are multiple ways to ask, but the first thing you want to be asking your employer, your potential employer, is have they already employed immigrants in your role or a similar one? And if so, what is the selection process like? Now, that is the best case scenario. If they say no, say, have you considered it or will you be willing to? And a lot of times employers are willing to, or they say, oh, I would like to learn a little more about that. And in the event that they do want to learn a little more, they can ask, you can ask me questions directly via my email, or you could search on USCIS or contact us. But a lot of times when you have an employer who hasn't sponsored foreign nationals before, it's genuinely because they don't understand the immigration process. As many of you all know, immigration in the United States is a confusing process as a whole. And as you can imagine, employers get a little nervous working with immigration as well. But a lot of times they really just need a clear understanding of what are their obligations if they sponsor someone and what does it look like. And a lot of times once you explain everything to them, they're willing to sponsor you. Next, you want to ask your employer, if you don't want to directly ask them, hey, want to sponsor me? Do you sponsor? Ask your employer if there are routes to permanent or temporary hiring within the company. Don't even specify, you know, for international students, immigrants. If they say yes, ask about the process. And while they're going through the process, say, okay, does this also apply to international students or foreign nationals? Or is that a little different for us? But the meat of it is going to be, you have to ask your employers what is out there for them, or your potential employers. And again, if you can't find an employer who wants to sponsor you, use LinkedIn. You need to network, really utilize the connections you're making at these different internships, OPT, CPT, networking in the community, school, college-based, community events. You need to network to find companies that do, because I think the big misconception is that employers don't like to engage in the sponsorship process, but there are so many employers who do and regularly do. So make sure you're asking the right questions. And for the ones who are confused, make sure you can direct them to a source to provide them clarity, so that they can have a clear understanding of what this looks like, and understand that this is a mutually beneficial process for them and for the employee that they choose to sponsor. So what are the key takeaways from today? So first, a student can prepare and possibly self-petition while in school by ensuring that you are achieving the necessary requirements for each visa. You've seen them. Now you can go back and say, let me look up awards. What can I get? What can I author? What are there writing opportunities within my university? A lot of the times, there are. So make sure that you're preparing yourself for that now, or even looking for opportunities in the future. Second, a student with a master's degree, and these are just the biggest takeaways, can get an EB2 national interest waiver. You do not need an employer to get that employment-based green card route. And lastly, employer sponsorships are available as well. Ask your potential employers, the internships, anyone who's over you, if they have experience hiring F1 students or immigrants, because a lot of times they are really open to it. So, and again, if they have any questions, tell them to contact me. Utilize our website, look at our resources. We have a ton to offer if you do have questions. So please feel free to reach out and utilize these different opportunities, so that you can build yourself to be able to apply for one of these categories. So what's next? Well, first of all, I want to say thank you so much for attending today's webinar. It's always a pleasure to share and teach individuals on different routes that they can take, especially for foreign nationals and students, especially the visa options that are available for you beyond where you're at, because the world is really your oyster, and there are so many opportunities to get there if you prepare yourself today and moving forward. So first, of course, we want to give you guys a free consultation code just for attending, because we're thankful that you're here and we're happy to provide you with this valuable information. Second, let's say you're not ready for a consultation, completely fine. Have small questions, feel free to contact me directly at my email at hannah.whaley@eganimmigration.com, or ask us a question in our inquiry box on our website. As you can see below, if you want to get straight to the business immigration page, it's eganimmigration.com/business dash immigration with that backslash. And let's say you're not ready to really look into it, but you want to learn more about what options are available, because again, these are the best ones for international students, but there are so many other categories that exist that you may qualify for. So if you would like to learn more, please follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn. And on LinkedIn, you can actually subscribe to our newsletter, where we provide the latest updates on all things immigration. And again, our free consultation code is right there. If you forget it, again, feel free to message me and I can give it to you. But we're really thankful that you're here today, and we appreciate you guys being here. Now I'm just going to check and see if we have any questions. Okay, there's a lot, which is awesome. So I'm just scrolling to the top. Okay. For the person who said their OPT just ended and you have 60 days to find a solution, now 60 days is a tight spot. And I can't advise specifically on that just because I'd want a full picture of understanding. If you want to email me and explain a little more, I can give you a better answer as to what that is. Now, what is the percent of success of obtaining these visas? That is dependent on the individual. To be completely honest, there's a higher record of success when you actually have the evidence. If you try to meet these categories, but you don't have the evidence, you don't have the documentation, that's when the percentages are low. And I tell clients, this is iffy. You don't have the documentation. There's no record except, let's say, letters of recommendation. And although those can be persuasive, you want to have a full layout of documentation to really support this. And that's especially with that employment-based green card. That is very important. Can you apply to all of these over time if it doesn't pass through oh yes, you can. Belle, you can apply for these visas multiple times. There are people who will try to do crossover. That O1 to EB1A is the biggest crossover I see, where we have an individual who was able to find a employer to sponsor them, right? But now as they're working, they're getting extended. They want to apply for an EB1A. You can put in that EB1A and try to get it approved. If it doesn't get approved, you can always apply again or apply for another category. It doesn't affect your immigration history if you are denied. But again, the best way to avoid a denial, have that documentation. And I always suggest try to meet more than the minimum. If it's 3 out of the 8, 3 out of the 6, you want to go for meeting at least 4, maybe 5 if you can cross over with some of your evidence. But it doesn't affect you. You can apply for them over time. Does your previous experience outside the US count towards an EB1 or EB2 visa? For an EB2, it depends now on the category that you're under. If you're a bachelor's plus 5 years of experience as your qualifying criteria, those 5 years of experience need to be after the bachelor's. Now, if you achieve that outside the United States and you also achieved your years of experience, that's fine. But specifically for that bachelor's plus 5 years, it needs to be after. Now with exceptional ability, it doesn't matter. But with that bachelor's plus, you really need to make sure that experience has to be after. But it doesn't matter if it's outside the US or in the US. With the EB1, it definitely doesn't matter. But that's just with experience. Now, when it comes to fulfilling the awards and the different criteria, so long as it isn't an educational plus X, you're fine and you will have no issues. What are the areas of national importance? That is not that is a big question. Now, how this is evaluated is that the attorney does research. A great way to look if you're not sure and you don't want to waste the time. The best resource, you need to be looking at the Bureau of Labor Statistics for your specific job description. That is the best way to see what the national importance is, but it isn't narrowed to a specific area of work. I've seen EB2 national interest waivers for teachers, for nurses, for legal professionals, for engineers. It doesn't matter as long as the specific area that you work in is of national importance here in the United States. And your attorney, it would be their job to really support that petition with lots of evidence, a lot of research to show that you are of need here in the United States, which is why you're bypassing that labor certification process. What are the options as a self-employed business owner in first year OPT? How can I qualify for STEM OPTs? Okay, the second part we can talk about. I can talk to you about the self-employed business owner. Now, if you're a self-employed business owner, you don't need to worry about OPTs. Don't worry about that. If you're an entrepreneur, then you will qualify separately under a different category. Like with that EB2, the EB2 NIW with that exceptional ability, even with that EB1, it's about meeting the criteria. I don't want us to get too far into, oh, I'm on this status and I'm on that. We really need to focus on fulfilling the criteria. If you're a self-employed business owner who can fulfill the criteria, then you can get that employment-based green card. Sorry, you're welcome. Sorry. I have an EB2 NIW approved, but my J1 is expiring. If I have a J2 example, then maintain my status. Okay. You have an EB2 NIW was approved. You would have to email me because J1s, they can have, I know, some J1s have restrictions. So if your J1 has a restriction that says you have to return home, your only other option would be to try to get a waiver, but I would need to look at what your visa says and what the restrictions are for your specific one. But you're not going to lose it, but it really depends on the requirements on your J1. That is a very case specific one. So I would want to look at what the restrictions say on your visa so I could really understand. And does applying for an EB2 affect my F1? No, it does not affect your F1 status. It does not affect your status whatsoever to apply for an EB2. How long does the processing of an application and to receive the outcome of it for each of these visas? So each of these are different. If you want to see specifically, you can go to USCIS's website. However, I know you just asked me, so I'm going to give you the answers of what I know. And for the EB2 and EB1, there is premium processing, which means there is a wait time right now. I want to say, is it between 3 and 5 months? I want to say that, don't hold me to it, but you can pay for premium processing. And for $1,500, you can get an answer within 15 days. And a lot of people like to do this, especially when their status is expiring, because it allows them to get a quicker answer and not have to worry about, okay, now I have to leave, I got to come back. So as far as processing goes with the self petitions, you don't have to worry about that at all. What you really want, well, because you can premium process if need be. But the processing time, I want to say it was 3 to 5 months, but I'm not sure. You really need to check with USCIS's website. And if you're not in the United States, I assume the majority of you all are, but if you're not in the United States, you need to factor in that you need to be approved with USCIS. Then you have to go through consular processing, which can slow down the process as well. That depends on the visa bulletin. If you want more information on that, please feel free to email me so I can go into that. And I think that's all the questions. Thanks, Michelle. And if you have any more questions, please feel free to message me, send me an email, or submit a question in our inquiry box on our website. But thank you so much. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day. And I hope you all were able to learn something and hopefully have some hope for your future. So I will see you guys later. Bye. You're welcome.